Everyone, and welcome to Ditch Diggers Dialogue Volume 16. For those who don't know me, my name is Ashley Hudson. I am the Operations Manager with the Heavy Construction Contractors Association. If this is your first time tuning into a Ditch Diggers Dialogue, welcome. HCCA strives to provide educational and networking opportunities for our membership, so we created the Ditch Diggers Dialogue series as a virtual way to stay connected. Today's session will be hosted by one of our newest HCCA members, Tenna. Tenna blends cutting-edge technology with more than 100 years of construction industry experience to help companies know more, control more, and make more. Russ Young of Tenna joins us today with more than 2 decades of wisdom in technology, strategy, selection, and adoption. Through today's session, you will learn strategies for managing equipment, automating processes, and more. During today's session, we ask that you keep your microphones muted until we open the floor for questions. If you have questions or thoughts as we move through the presentation, I encourage you to type them in the chat box as we go so they can be addressed at the end of the presentation. Now I will turn it over to Russ. Thank you for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate it. Great to be here with everyone. Probably wish we could all be in person, but probably virtual would make sense weather-wise and Omicron flare-up wise. So hopefully we can all meet in real life soon. Super happy to be here today. HCA is exactly the kind of organization that we love to work with and be a part of for the long term. Exactly the kind of folks we love to work with. So thanks for having me in today. I'm Russ Young. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, but first, I'll go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to try and move pretty fast here today, if that's okay, so that we'll leave a solid 15 minutes, I hope, so that we can have some Q&A if you guys are up for it. If not, we'll give you 15 minutes back to your life. But let me go ahead and share my screen here quickly. Are you guys seeing my screen okay? Or did I share the wrong screen? Let me make sure I'm clicking the right one. Boom. Yeah, okay. There we go. Hopefully you guys are seeing a big welcome screen. Okay. Well, yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Let's dig right into it. So I'll just tell you a quick little bit about Tennis, who we are. Talk a little bit about construction tech very quick on sort of trends in construction technology, sort of some lessons from, there's about 1,200 contractors that had, they went through a deep interview sequence to see what's working and what's not, what is working and what isn't working. We'll go through that. We'll dive more into the specifics around equipment management, because that's kind of a pretty newish field in construction technology and becoming a much more important play lately, and probably pretty good for HCAA. And then we'll do some quick takeaways. And then to start the conversation, I'll just be Q&A. We'll talk about, if you have questions, or if this is something you want to go deeper on, what would next steps look like? This is me, just seeing who I am. I come from technology, not from construction. I've done cycles with Google, with Oracle, with Amazon would be the big ones that I tend to take really cool small startups that are hitting a really target niche that's really big and saves folks a lot of money and grow the heck out of those companies is my background. And then I did a bunch of cycles with FMI, which is management consulting and investment banking for construction companies, and worked with a bunch of technology companies for some years there. So you might have seen me out there in the field in my FMI role. And then I've been with Tenna now for about 1.5 years, mainly because of what we saw in the big movement around, how are we going to manage construction equipment? But that's me. And you can see me on the screen, and maybe I need to update that picture because I'm realizing it's maybe a little old. So Tenna, we are construction technology, purpose-built for construction, focusing on equipment, construction equipment management. But a quick little bit about our history is we're born out of Conti, which is over 100-year-old, 5-generation construction company focused in heavy civil work, actually based in New Jersey. They also do a bunch of federal work, is mostly what they're known for. Tenna was born out of a problem, and that They had a system of systems that didn't talk well to each other on equipment management. They had theft problems. They had utilization problems, location problems, things like maintenance and preventative maintenance. And so they basically built Tenna starting about now 6 years ago, and then commercialized it 4 years ago, and have been sort of now attacking the market much more in a big way over the last year and a half with what's called Tenna. But that's just a quick bit of who we are and where we come from. So let's talk quickly about construction tech. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of money going into construction technology. We're seeing a lot of construction companies go from a manual, non-automated process into a digital or automated process where they can. It's not easy, right? That's why construction's been a little bit late to move into this. Tougher to do for construction than for some other industries, but we are seeing a ton of companies really eke out better margins. And we're going to talk a little bit about sort of as we mine through the data, what's working really well for them and what isn't. It might not all resonate for you, but hopefully there'll be a few lessons you can take away. First of all, let's talk about what the opportunity is. This is, this is 1,200 companies sponsored by Autodesk, actually, in terms of a survey and interview sequence. But where are you spending your time as a company, mostly around the operations side? And this is about 40% GCs and about 60% subs, all in North America. Some were from Australia. But as they reported back, you'll see, when they talk about, project execution all the way down, I like to focus here on this part down here. And this is a self-reported 14 hours spent on non-optimal activities. And this broke into like looking for project data and information, conflict resolution, et cetera. Compared to other industries, this is extremely high. Manufacturing, for instance, has this sort of report would come out in the single digits. And this, total percentage being 14 hours or, a massive, third of your time in the construction world is a huge, particularly in an industry that has such a labor shortage, is massive inefficiency. And we don't have to get as efficient as manufacturing, right? The reality is just to be, good at our jobs. If we can lower this number from, say, a 30% to even a 25% or 25% to a 20%, that labor costs in our industry tend to be one of our biggest costs, around 42% for most companies that are ditch diggers. Might be different for your company, but that kind of change equates to 2% dropping down to the bottom line. And depending on what kind of work you do, the folks that do highways and bridges, tend to operate around a 6 or 7% margin as an average nationally. Folks that do more utility work tend to enjoy more like a 10 or 11, sometimes 12%. Anyways, a 2% difference is massive. And this is what people are starting to see. And those numbers are getting better and better as we get better at this. So that's why you're seeing a ton of investment go into the space. You're seeing a lot of folks invest in technology. At a really high level, though, why aren't we all just running out there and willy-nilly writing checks? It's because we also see a lot of failure as we invest in construction technologies. Some things work really well, some things don't. This is normal in industries as they, what you might call digitize from a manual process. I think it's uniquely difficult in construction because we're so project oriented. We kind of live and die project by project. We also tend to be, we don't have big, giant national players. Typically, we tend to have long-term family-owned businesses that operate in a few states. And with no access to like public funding and things like that. So we have to be incredibly cautious. If you're running a construction company, you're basically gambling every day, project by project. So there's little tolerance for failure. You might want to get better, but getting worse is too scary. So a great thought here is the same survey where the question was, when you invest in technology and it doesn't work out the way you planned, why not? And it drove down to a few things, like it didn't fit with process and procedures for construction, low adoption rate, like it sounded good at the executive level, but the field didn't start using it. Poor integrations, like, these data silos where they do dual data entry and things like that. The training implementation, most of this stuff was around, sort of poor implementation, poor partnership with tech. And I think probably, it all distilled down into a few key areas that I wanted to share. and hopefully these resonate with you. One was construction focus, right? These companies reported that when they bought technology that was built for a whole bunch of industries, they tended to have higher failure rates. Maybe one example is ERPs. We don't see a lot of people moving to JD Edwards today. We see most of people, pluses or minuses, they move to a Viewpoint or a Sage or a Coins or Foundation. Not that I'm pushing for any of those, but that construction focus, as opposed to serving lots of industries, is a huge differentiator. Another one was one platform that we heard sort of repeatedly, and that was that nobody buys 3 or 4 ERPs; they buy one. Project management, your company tends to operate better if you're on one project management or labor management tool. Same thing for equipment management. Now, there's a balance to this, right? If you tried to have one technology that did everything for your company, we saw higher failure rates. So it's more of a system of systems, right? An ERP that works really well with your project management, that works really well with labor management, really well with bidding and estimating, and really well with your equipment management, as an example, right? And have those pieces work for you and tie together really well. So we call that the one platform. And if you're buying 3 or 4 things to sort of overlap on the same job, we see a lot of frustration out, really in the field as well, and more data silos. Customer success was a big one. Someone that really took them by the hand. And customer success kind of broke down to 2 things. One was sort of the implementation phase, like, hey, we signed on the dotted line. Now we got to get to where everybody's using it, knows how to use it, and happy with it. And the companies that reported that they had a technology partner here, someone that took them by the hand and helped them and worked with partnership to get them from, hey, we signed, to everybody's happily utilizing it. And then from there on, it was really a true partner to the industry and helping them for years down the road. Simple things like having a named account rep at that company that you could call that knew your company. Little things like that that are important to ask about, and companies that would have a plan for, once you buy, here's exactly what we're going to do to get you to the promised land, and commits to that contractually. And this last one here is around sort of the tech stack, right? That they don't think it's your job to get your data to flow where you want it to. Like, hey, we're happy to sell this to you, but it's up to you to get the data where you want. That you have a really good partner that is tying your data wherever you want it to be. Your office might want this data to live inside your ERP. Your project manager or supers, they might want data living inside the project management platform. They don't like switching around and going to 8 different technologies to run their day. They want to get down to one. Your field folks really want a mobile platform that pulls all the data and everything they need. So there was more to that, but I thought for the purpose of this discussion, I'd share those really big 4 takeaways. These are not hard and fast rules, should not be taken as such. Probably most of us use Microsoft for office productivity every day, and it's not necessarily a construction-focused solution, right? But overall, as you look at the technology you invest in, these were really very key takeaways that the industry was reporting back for success. Moving on, I wanted to dive a little bit more specifically into equipment management. I would say, we look at the big costs in construction, right? And the risks we take. Probably labor is the biggest one for most companies. Equipment is reported as the second biggest expense. It's also the one where we hear the most, we're not really sure what the cost actually is. We hear stories of people just throwing a 20% number on their bids and not really knowing what it is. And so there's a real opportunity there. The basic premise is, we've sort of broken it down into levels we see in the industry that I wanted to share here. This is what we call level 1, reported back from the industry. And this is a fully manual process. What you'll see here, there's 100 stories we could tell here, but here's the picture of a whiteboard where someone's literally moving sticky notes around on a board, right? There's tons of problems here, of course, right? COVID obviously kind of poured gas on this fire, that if you can't get to your board, how do you know what's going on? And oftentimes the reality doesn't match the board, that something's been moved from one project to another. Maybe you don't know, something's been stolen, or little things like, maybe equipment hours are being written down by somebody in the field and then, brought back to the office in the super's truck kind of thing. Most folks are graduating from this, but there's still some folks that have this fully manual process. Obviously, there's errors and there's tons of money lost here. Next is what we call level 2, and this is where folks are playing with a potential digitized system, and they're starting to autonomously collect some data. But level 2 has this mix of manual process and digital process for equipment management. So a bunch of examples you get here, like maybe on your heavy equipment, you're using a Cat Vision Link or John Deere or Komatsu's product. And on your road stuff, you might have, Verizon or AT&T or a Samsara. And then for your tools, you might be playing with, solutions by Hilti. You might be renting from United Rentals and using United Rentals. And these systems don't tie in very well together. And then they don't really tie very well back into your ERP or your project management. And there's a huge frustration in the field because they have to learn multiple systems. The onboarding's hard, a lot of frustration. People end up not using it. So you have dual data entry. There are some advantages here. As you start to autonomously collect data and get better at maintenance and preventative maintenance, do that ounce of prevention instead of a pound of cure, or make sure stuff doesn't get stolen or walk off the job site. You do start to see some real benefits here. So level 2 does have benefits from level 1, but it has massive complexity. I would pause here that that complexity typically gets reported as 3 things. One is the equipment type. There's your heavy equipment, your stuff on the road, your concrete tuck to your low boys to your F-150, to vans and things, and then your tools. Then there's sort of everything in between. We have to think about the attachments, the road plates, the trench boxes, the scissor lifts, generators, light poles, all that kind of stuff that all needs to kind of be put on one system. And then the second one is the people. Your folks operating on the field typically don't have a laptop. You need some sort of mobile interface for them. Your equipment manager, your mechanics, folks like that usually have like sort of a laptop interface. They need all the data there. And then your folks in the office want to see that stuff, maybe in your project management or in your ERP, or some folks are moving to business intelligence. So that second is the people and how do they use it. And the third one is use case, right? We're seeing people have a complexity in terms of, I've got this for anti-theft, or this for my maintenance or preventative maintenance, or this for my dispatch, this for utilization and location and asset billing and things like that. And when you take those sort of 3 different buckets, the types of equipment, the people, and what they want to do with it, we've ended up with a fairly complex system that, sometimes you run into a company and there's really only 3 people in the company that really even knows how it all works. And so that's kind of the level 2 concept. Level 3 is when you get it all into one system, right? When you take those 3 boxes and get it all in what we call one pane of glass, right? This is what Tenna does, but whether it's Tenna or however you look at this, something that is construction focused, knows how a construction company operates, can get all those variety of equipment and use cases onto one screen for your company, and everybody's not just on a single source of truth, but it's integrated and goes wherever the heck you want it to, and it also autonomously in live updates. It's not dependent on somebody telling you, someone showing up at the work site to determine something was stolen. It'll tell you when it goes off the job site, or when you report equipment hours. It's the equipment autonomously reporting how much it was running and what job it was on, as opposed to somebody having to fill that paperwork in, and maybe it gets driven into the office in an F-150, and then somebody actually types it into the ERP. Those days are sort of gone, if you will, at level 3. And again, the big win to level 3 is one system, fully integrated, everybody on one single source of truth. And then we have what we call level 4, which is now we're getting into, I don't want to say science fiction, because there are people really dabbing their toe here. I would argue that nobody's doing this perfectly right at this point. But the 2 big changes at level 4 are, on a software side, we see people going from an ERP centralized system that they're flowing into to maybe having sort of a centralized data lake and business intelligence tool. So, today we have the ERP as kind of the single source of truth, and labor and equipment and everything feeding into that. And then at level 4, we see ERP as more of a spoke on that hub. We don't have to go too deep here. I have a couple slides on it if we want to go deep on it. But then on the hardware side, we're seeing people play with things that typically maybe weren't originally found in our world. But things like autonomous bulldozers or self-driving trucks, robotics, assistive devices, drones, and the like that people are starting to play with, that in terms of managing the equipment is going to become sort of an important thing to think about. And that level 4, nobody's tied it all together and doing it enterprise-wide that I've seen. But there are lots of folks, kind of dipping their toe in the water. So something like, as you do modernize, it's a good thing to be thinking about that you might need to be doing more of 5 or 10 years from now. This is that quick dive that today most folks have sort of an ERP centric. We got to get our bills out every month, right? So everything needs to sort of fall into the ERP. And we think that's going to be the main way things are for a while. And as you think of level 3, this is what level 3 looks like, and how we think of Tenna today as an example, as a construction partner. But in the future, you might start seeing this ERP and all these different data flowing into central business lake. This might be maybe your company's playing with Power BI or Tableau or something like that. Power BI seems to be a pretty big leader right now in this space. But we're seeing some people, build a data lake in their presentation layer that shows all of their enterprise data. Probably this is where we play as 10, and what we're sort of talking about here today is you need to autonomously collect all of that equipment data for all those use cases and all those people. If it's one of those garbage in, garbage out. We see people build these, slick Power BI dashboards, and they look awesome, and then you realize the data is wrong. So you got to make sure all this data is right and collected at each of these spokes so that you can feed this wheel. But that's a big place we're seeing people going here today. So, some examples, right? We're seeing more of these autonomous bulldozers and autonomous equipment on site. We're seeing some cool things come out from Trimble and Caterpillar and the like. Even some of the rental companies like the United Rentals, et cetera, are starting to invest in this stuff. Drone tech, which used to be much more of something for vertical building, we're starting to see more and more of that on the horizontal stuff that we all think about. We're seeing autonomous driving vehicles, right? And more importantly today, before we get to this level 4, we're seeing folks use, video telematics and telematics, doing things like driver scorecard, automating DVIR and equipment inspections, and things like that. We're seeing more and more of that, really to lower risk and make sure we're compliant. We're seeing this is something by Canvas. Most of you won't see this in your day-to-day life, but it's a pretty cool example of robotics where this can do a level of life finish on drywall, which is kind of amazing. Most people didn't think that was possible, but so they're landing pretty big contracts. One that's probably more applicable to our world is I don't have a picture of it here, but it's a product called TieBot, which actually does the backbreaking labor of actually tying rebar for highways and bridges and the like. So there's one robot that will actually lay the rebar down, and another one that goes and ties all of it. Does it faster than people do. There are pluses and minuses, right? Whether that's right or wrong for your company is not the discussion today, but it's more that this stuff's there's going to be more of it, not less of it. So when we think about our company and how we manage our margins and how we operate to win and deliver business, it's good things to have on your plate to think about over the next few years. Also, we're starting to see assistive devices as well. Not big, really just being played with. We're not seeing much of it in our space, but something to think about. And finally, this is I should pause and say that the data at the beginning of our conversation was very driven from the field. A lot, huge data set, 1,200 construction companies, right? This is more finger to the wind data. I almost hate to quote it to some degree, but we're seeing this race of folks going from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 to manage those margins and risk better. Today, we see about 20% at this level 1, fully manual process, not automating their equipment management. This number, of course, is going down. It tends to be more in smaller companies. It's rare for larger companies not to have some automated process. The bulk of the market today is at level 2, right? They have some system of systems. Some of them talk to each other, some of them don't. But so they've seen some wins from digitizing and automating part of this process, but they haven't tied it all together yet. And level 2 is where we see most of the market today, where they're getting a taste of this. They're starting to get a better view on what their equipment really costs them, and what they need to do to lower that. But they've taken one step on this journey. Level 3, we're seeing about 18% there. This is, by the way, this is from Tenna's CRM, our Salesforce instance of where are people reporting where they are, data across maybe 1,000 companies. Not very scientific is what I want to share, but we see about 18% now getting to a level 3. Self-reporting, I think the number is actually a little bit less. Where people are getting everything on one platform, fully integrated. And then this level 4 is where people report that they're actually playing with business intelligence, seeing some success with it, doing things like the hardware stuff like robotics, et cetera. Tiny fraction, of course. But we think, obviously we're watching this over time. I would expect all of this to trend to the right as we look 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road. But kind of interesting to watch this. I would say that it's sort of following the same trend that maybe ERPs did, and then project management. We all sort of moved onto one unified ERP platform. We all moved onto one unified project management platform. Maybe some of you have, got all of your labor onto, a single unified labor management. And then equipment's kind of one of the last ones to fall. It was one of the, it takes both hardware, software integrations, mobile platform. So it's I think we're all behind on it because it's a pretty hard nut to crack. The good news is it's getting cracked. We're, that you don't have to build your own stuff right now. You don't have to tie together the spider web of manual and digital processes that we are there now, which is kind of fun. So you think about equipment and maybe this sort of where's the information, and that today a big problem is maybe the equipment manager knows where everything is and where it's going, but there's sort of maybe the CFO doesn't have visibility, the executive team doesn't know it. Kind of there are a handful of sort of black boxes in construction that are sort of self-reported from the industry. Equipment is a big one. Another one actually is bidding and estimating. I see billion-dollar construction companies that are still doing their bidding and estimating based on a really special spreadsheet that only 3 people know how to use, as opposed to modernizing and automating their bidding and estimating. Those are we have nothing to do with bidding and estimating, by the way, but those are sort of self-reported big on. So this, where's the information? The IT. Some companies have IT get involved in equipment. Some folks kind of like just have a support role. We're seeing more and more where the equipment management, safety and security, IT, field operations, and the various office roles all really tying together, and everybody being on this single source of truth, and everybody having autonomous trusted data. So this where the information thing is going away, slowly, painfully even perhaps. But the good news is that this sort of the last years of these married up processes is sort of going away. And we're all sort of, living on that same source. And I think it's probably important to park just for a couple of minutes here and what's the value here? The companies that are getting this right, the companies that moved to this level 3, what is the actual measurable results that they're seeing? And they really fall into 2 primary categories. I mean, there's a bunch, right? We can talk about the small stories, like, something got stolen and it got instantly recovered instead of not knowing about it for 2 days. I'm not talking about all those stories. When those all pile up, what do they mean to the company at a high level? The first one, this one on the right here, is lower project costs, right? So if you are a company that has 20% equipment costs, you are able to move that to more of like an 18% equipment cost and drop that 2% right down to the bottom line, right? You might, and this will be a ton of ways you'll do this, you got to, instead of being that, just being proud of all the equipment you own, you think about, much like maybe you think of your labor, you think about what's that equipment getting done for me? How much money is that equipment making us? Our customers don't pay us to own equipment, they pay us to complete projects. And equipment is a tool to get those projects done and win those projects. So the more efficient we are, the more we treat it like a portfolio and get rid of the underperforming portfolios and invest in the overperforming portfolios, we start making a ton more money. And that leads into this second part, which is this lower overall capital investment, right? The joke I make is some people call it yellow iron fever. And that, we take pride in the investment we have in all of our equipment. We walk around our yard and our shop and our projects being proud of our equipment. And not to say there's not some value to that, but knowing, having something sit unused for months is something you should at least know. And this lower capital investment, just to give you an example, your typical $100 million heavy civil company on average will own about $30 million worth of equipment, right? What if you could get more done at a higher margin, more safely, and do it with a capital investment of 25 million, right? That's the results we're seeing. If you could take that $100 million heavy civil company can now take that $30 million investment and take it down to 25 million. Besides all that money you save, keeping it running and maintenance and preventive maintenance, all that stuff, just that simple $5 million, you now have $5 million of additional capital that you can invest in other parts of your business, right? Where would you invest that? And that's a great conversation to have. Now we got this extra 5 million. What are we going to do with it? So that those two big things, that actual being able to bid more efficiently and win more business and get more done with the same amount of people and same amount of equipment, or even lowering those. And so getting better margin on those projects is number one. And number two is that lower capital investment you actually have in equipment. Those are the two big results we see as people are moving to level 3. So I think it's important that we talk about those and what are these companies reporting as they're really big wins at a high level, reporting up to the executive team. And tying all this together, sort of up leveling the sort of visibility of, as you look at heavy civil companies, some of them are even using this as a differentiator. Like if you can actually go in on the bid, I guess I'd say some folks used to use BIM as a exciting, sexy tool to, show a digital twin model. We're not doing a lot of that in our business, maybe on bridges and dams and things like that. We see some of it, but this kind of tool, when you get this right, is something you can actually use to help sell, when you go after DOT work, to actually give them one pane of glass and show them how the heck you're going to manage their project. So it's actually got some, we're talking about the steak here mostly, but actually has some sizzle that's helping folks really win business, which is, kind of fun as well. Where are we at? About 10:34. So, takeaways, and let me pause here and talk about, next steps. Like, if you feel like your equipment management is great, awesome. If you think you're in the right spot right now, but if you want to have a conversation, I wanted to make sure you had my contact info. Reach out to HCAA, of course. Talk to other folks in your group of what they're doing, what's not working is an awesome source. And I also wanted to make sure that I think probably many of you already know Justin Jones. He's been in the industry forever. He spent years in construction tech. And has been in the area for a long time and knows a ton about construction equipment and how to manage it. He's the local resource for TENA in what we call the Mid-Atlantic area. But I wanted to make sure, if I could pause. Justin, do you mind going off mute, maybe just introducing yourself quickly so folks know who the heck you are?
Well, yeah, Russ, I think you stole all of my thunder, but yeah, located in Fredericksburg.
Sorry, bud.
Located in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I definitely know quite a few folks that are within the HCCA organization, looking to know a bunch more of you. Yeah, if there's anything that I can help with, I'll certainly follow up with the folks that attended and lightly just to pass along my contact information. But Russ, great job with what you shared today. Very insightful.
Thanks, Justin. Let me see. I did want to, in working with HCAA is a group we're super excited about. We want to build a long-term trusted relationship. We look forward to seeing you out and about as we do more live events. I know Justin's certainly uniquely excited about it as well, but TENA is certainly looking to support that. Know that here's Justin's contact information. Mine is, we don't have it on here, but it's russell.young@tena.com. You can also do ryoung@tena.com works. Feel free to find us on LinkedIn as well and connect with us there. But also we, as an HCCA member, wanted to make sure that that we have a discount. If you are a member, we have a 15% discount on the TENA hardware. There is, there's the hardware component, the actual telematics that we install on all the various equipment. Then there's the software and integrations part of it. But as a member, you'll get a 15% discount, and we're excited to extend that and start getting some nice traction and some trusted relationships here. You have any questions about that? Reach out to Justin or myself, of course. With that, I think where are we? We're at about 10:37, so we wrapped up a little bit early here. I hope that's a win for all of you. But now, if anybody wants to go off mute or has any questions at all right now that you think is great, let me say that now's the time. Stunned silence is also great. If you do have, feel free to shoot us emails. Feel free to shoot it to HCCA. Anything, any feedback you have on the presentation. We're always, if there's things you didn't like about the Prezo and you thought could be more, different things you'd like to see us cover, we are happy to come back again if there's other topics you're super excited about. We're looking forward to educate and partner with the industry long term is our real goal here. Yeah, with that, anything you wanted to add, Ashley?
Just wanted to make one more call for questions if anyone has any. And also thank you, Russ, for a great presentation. Very insightful and very well-rounded. So thank you for informing us on how we can improve our strategies here. Alrighty, well, that will conclude today's session. So this will be posted on YouTube if you'd like to go double back to re-access the information. And as Russ mentioned, if you're looking for contact information for those from TENA, feel free to reach out to me if you didn't get it written down from the last slide. So thank you all for being here and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate the time. Take care.